So today my presentation is about database types and the different ways that people use databases in today's businesses. So we're going to talk about what database types are and also a little bit about database management systems. And there's 6 important database types that I want to cover. They can all either be SQL or no SQL, but there are a few more, but basically 6 main ones. So starting off, talking about what is a database exactly. A database is an organization of collected data, and this means that people will collect data in various ways. You talk about Internet of Things and big data, all this connects to databases. And they can organize it in different ways too, with schemes and tables and reports, just bunches of ways depending on the type of databases, which I will cover later. And they all support processing information. So you bring in all the data, all the information, and you sort it out and organize it to make it easier to use and easier to analyze. So then there's database management, which is how to use and analyze it. It's about user interface, which means when you are presented with this data, what does it look like, and how is it organized, and it connects the user to the database. So the person is the user, and say the interface is the screen of a computer. How is the database organized on the screen? Are they in columns? Is it pictures? It's just a huge variety of ways to organize data. And the management of it is using different programs and applications to organize it in a way that best suits the needs of the user. There are a few different database management systems, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, Sybase, DB2. Again, we've talked about these before, and they are, again, some of them SQL, some of them non-SQL, no SQL. But the variety is these 6 database types. So the first one that I want to go over is operational databases. These work with enterprise operations. They work with how enterprises run, who's involved in them, the data that comes in. They can use it to analyze how to improve an enterprise. And then another one, more detailed, would be it's relating to company operations. A lot about functional lines, so marketing, production, employees, all that kind of stuff, all the data that would be involved in organizing a marketing team and managing that production line. That might be applied to supply chain management, if you're looking back on that. Keeps everything with the employees in line. There's also end user databases. These work with managers, they work with higher ups. They're less detail oriented, more towards the overall organization, kind of like a combined database. So again, less operational data, so it's not as detailed. There's more summary. This is for managers. Instead of looking at all the busy work that the people under them will be doing, they're kind of taking the data that will be all summed up in the end and using that. So again, it's useful for managers, other end users, other higher ups in an organization. The third one is centralized databases, and they work to connect the data. So you think of the first two, you had the operational databases and the end user databases, and how do those connect? It's through a centralized database. So they'll store the information and the applications from the first database, from the initial one, and they'll keep it at a central location. So imagine a huge company spread across the country is going to have a bunch of operational databases. All that information will get pushed into a centralized database, which will be stored at one central location, and it's accessible from there to the users. And that's how you'll be able to view all of the data on the databases at the same time. Then you have distributed databases, which are a little bit the opposite in a way. They work with the local and the common, and that means that, so you have that common database in the middle, and it can be distributed out back to the operational out wide, and they get those data from the local operations, and then the data will remain distributed. So instead of being centralized, the data is distributed out towards others, and it's linked with communication links, which can be a variety of different things, but essentially somehow in a variety of ways the data will be communicated from a central database out towards everyone else. And then finally there's personal databases, which are working within the department. Generally these are for smaller number of users. They're stored on one PC, so they don't have to hold a lot of storage space. There's limited data, so it's not big operational kind of things. Small group of users, which is why I said they work in the same department, because generally this would be, imagine one department in a company would use a personal database, and it's subject specific and user designed, which means it's good at collecting information for one thing. So it's very specific and designed by the people who use it. So hopefully that will optimize how the database works. And finally, there are commercial databases, which are working with the people. These are commercial ventures. You sell these databases. They're available to anyone for a price. Again, they are subject specific, so they're kind of like a personal database, but instead of being designed by the people who use them, they're designed by someone else and then sold. And you usually see them in something like finance or information technology. And these are the different types of databases that people use in modern business.